So finally, we come to the last assignment of this course. I can hear you breathing a sigh of relief after you finish this assignment. Let's see what you need to do in the final assignment. So what are you going to do in the final assignment? You're going to use the resource service to go and fetch all the data that you need for your web application from the server. So you need to implement the resource for accessing the promotions from the server. So this information for the promotions on the index page should now be fetching the data from the server. That's your first task. Your second task would be to go and fetch all the leadership information from the server. Now in this case, you are displaying the information about the executive chef here. So you need to use the get method for fetching the information, using the resource and going to the server. Then, when you go to the About page, all the information being displayed for the corporate leadership, all this also needs to be fetched from the server. So you need to update the services and the controllers for implementing this. So that is your second task. So the second task is completely around the leadership information being fetched from the server. So you need to implement the resource, you need to implement the get and the query methods required in the index page and the About Us page. The last task, the third task in this assignment, is to activate this feedback page. So what we're going to do is when the user types in the feedback, we have already implemented the feedback controller. Now you need to implement a feedback service in the backend with a resource which will be able to send the feedback additions to the server. Now in this case, we start with the feedbacks being empty because we don't have any feedback from the users. So as you type in the feedback into the form here, so let's do that. So when you type in a feedback in the form, and then you can type in and say maybe contact you. Okay, contact me by email. I'm being nice here to the restaurant. So once we type in all this information and then click on the send feedback, all this feedback information has already been captured in a JavaScript object. Push that to the server. So you need to use the save method of the resource for pushing this information to the server. How do you know that this has succeeded? Pretty straightforward. If you go to your browser window and then at the address type in localhost :3000/feedback, you should see the JSON data showing all the feedback that you have just submitted as a JSON array there. So I had submitted one feedback earlier, so that is being recorded. The other feedback that I submitted right in front of you is also shown as a JSON object there. So that is the third task of this assignment. You need to use the save function of the resource service for this purpose. Have fun completing the final assignment. And then get prepared for the next course.